Hi everyone, this is Daria. Welcome back to another video on piano playing fundamentals. I'll be continuing my series with the follow-up video on exercises from this book that I've mentioned to you before. And I'm going to continue right away with exercise number 4. And if you have not watched the very first video on this topic, I recommend you do that first and then continue with this video. I have a close-up camera here to show you along what my fingers are doing. So this exercise is a 2-note slur, and it has the most fundamental idea of the wrist going down when we strike and up when we release the key. And as is indicated here, play the first note of each group with the weight of the whole arm. Transfer the weight to the second note. Lift and relax. So we're going to focus on that point. And musically, the second note of a slur should be a little lighter or softer than the first, and sometimes slightly shorter. Therefore, here, if you are familiar with the rhythm, this is what it's giving. The first note is a quarter note, and second note is an eighth note with the rest. But even if you don't know what it represents in terms of rhythm, just follow along with what I'm doing. They give you finger combinations, either 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, so which means just adjacent fingering combinations. And by the way, a little side note regarding the slur and the end of it. It doesn't matter if it's a 2-note slur, 3-note slur, 5-note slur, however many notes. It is generally musically considered better if you taper off at the end of the slur. All right, let's try it. First, we're going to change, it says begin with 2 to 3. We're going to choose 2 to 3 because it's the more agile finger combination. So let's start with dropping on 2, transferring, and releasing. See how light the second note is? And notice that the second note is passive. I don't have an active kick, so-called, right? I've noticed recently that one of my new students started kicking the second note up a little bit too aggressively, right? And we immediately fixed that with her. And this is exactly the idea of being passive, not actively jumping from that key, right? There's a difference. There will be a time where the active kick will be required. For example, if that second note is accented and it's staccato, so you want to put more emphasis on it, so you're going to do exactly that kick. But here you don't need to. It's a passive release. It goes up naturally, right? I pay a lot of attention to this very simple exercise of transferring weight because it's the essence of playing the piano, is understanding the weight, giving the weight freely, transferring and releasing. Right? So once you understand that simple gesture on 2 notes, then you can proceed with the exercise as written. Here we go. And notice I'm exaggerating how low I go just to make sure I give the weight. And you notice when even my second note is passive, meaning my wrist is releasing the weight, right? But my finger is still, I'm not doing this, right? With the finger. Remember, fingers should always go curved like this, right? Remember that? I'm going to show you the same thing with the left hand so you can see better with the finger. Down, up, down, up. Again, not this, right? That's a kick, and you don't need that. This is a simple passive. The wrist is passive. The finger is not passive. Finger is still, well, you could say that it's passively pressing the key, but not to the point where it's like this, right? You still need to maintain the posture, let's say, of the finger, right? Responsible for the touch. Responsible for that point of connection with the key. The fingertip is always alert, is always strong, and it has the nerve, right? It has not, I wouldn't say tension, or you could say it's tension, but it's the healthy tension that doesn't create unnecessary pain, or it doesn't transfer to the whole arm kind of tension, but it's just toned enough to maintain control over the key. Let's put it this way. So after you do it with 3-2 combination, which is the easiest, and by the way, once we continue all the way to the top C, we can go down. So basically 2 octaves from here to here, and then we go down, same way. And for the left hand, I would recommend going from here to here. That's your area, because going here is already uncomfortable. Have to go across your body all the way to the other side, and that's another thing to worry about and to control how your elbow moves and everything. So you don't need to add an additional task right now. So just focus on what's easier. It's right in front of you. So middle C and going down. And once you get more comfortable with the wrist and giving weight, once you're comfortable, you go ahead and don't exaggerate anymore. You can make it shorter amplitude, smaller amplitude. Right? And again, no kicking, not like this. Right? You don't need that. And we can proceed with following finger combinations. 1 to 2, which is slightly less comfortable. And the reason we start 2 to 3, as I already mentioned, this is because it's the most agile, most comfortable combination. They're almost the same in terms of length, usually. But 1 and 2 is awkward, right? Because 1 is on the side. Again, if you're interested in the nature of each finger and how they have different characters, I have a video on that as well. Feel free to watch that. And then, so you could see, thumb is on the side, and thumb is shorter, therefore it's going to go on the edge. I apologize if I repeat myself, because I mentioned thumb in many videos previously, but if you have never watched any of those, there'll be important information for you. Maybe you hear it for the first time. So thumb goes on the edge of the key, unlike the other fingers, which naturally go closer to the black keys, and this is the position that they should be in. This is the most convenient for your hand. So thumb goes here, wait, sorry, but not too much, right, where it falls down. Be careful. And thumb only takes about the nail part. You don't put too much thumb, you don't go like this, and you also don't put too little, like I just did. Don't do what I did, do what I say, right? And then up. So this is 1 to 2. Then you have the 3 to 4 combination. Down, up, down, up, down, up. And 4 to 5, or 5 to 4. Again, the reason it's different 5 to 4 versus 4 to 5 is, well, obviously because the hands are mirroring each other, right? The fingering. So you can even, when you get comfortable, if you want to save yourself some time, you can go ahead and do it simultaneously with both hands. So you can continue with the same keys. So C to B, B to A. This piano is slightly out of tune, I'm sorry. And another important thing here is to keep your hand calm. Do you see what I just did, right? Even when I have black keys in between here, if I have any keys, I'm not afraid to put my fingers on those keys. It doesn't mean that I will accidentally press them. I won't. They're just resting there. So you want to avoid this kind of situation where you're lifting these fingers, you're putting them up because you're afraid if they go on the key, they're going to press. They won't press. Don't worry. Just relax them and keep your hand calm, meaning fingers should face down all the time if possible. And another important thing is to avoid this thing. When your thumb is hanging, you go too much on the edge, right? Remember, try to go in such a position where your thumb always stays on the white keys. This exercise can be modified and played with the black keys. However, here's one trick. When you do it for 2 and 3, I recommend doing exactly as written, C to C sharp, C sharp to D. It's called the chromatic scale when you play all black and white keys, right? And notice, it says actually here, play also on the chromatic scale, play with the hands further in towards the full board. but don't let the location of the black keys change the wrist movement, right? So your wrist movement is still down, up, but now closer to the full board. Well, you can go closer to full board, or I also call it closer to the black key, like in the black key area. Why? Because you want to avoid doing this. Do you see what I did? I had to slide, move. Or here, right? It's extra movement. We don't want to do movements that are unnecessary. Movements that I'm teaching are the movements that are fundamentally important for the correct and comfortable playing. The movements that are sometimes created out of discomfort or incorrect technique, those movements will hinder your playing. So you have to distinguish between movements that are useful and needed and those that are extraneous and we want to avoid them. So this is one of the movements that is not necessary and it's extraneous, we want to avoid that movement, right? Move as little as possible, only what is required to perform your action, okay? Each movement has to serve a purpose. Here we go. So we're going to stay close to the black key, even right there, right in between, right? Full board is right here, so closer there. And no problem here with 2 and 3. Then no problem with 3, 4, and so on. You just have to learn to stay in between the black keys and close to the black keys. If your fingers are wide and it's hard, fingertips are wide and it's hard for you to fit in, like in between, go right underneath, but very close, right here, right? But I modify this exercise for my students when it comes to playing combination of 1 and 2. So the reason is I want to try to avoid placing the thumb on the black keys early on because it just creates a very difficult and different position, and I don't like to introduce it right away because generally, as a rule of thumb, we try to avoid putting thumb on the black keys for many reasons. And one of them being that thumb usually goes on the edge. And if thumb is here, that means the other fingers are all the way close here, right? Plus thumb is just thicker, larger, and it's clumsier. And around the thumb, again, if thumb is here, your other fingers are here. And playing your fingers here is much more difficult. Also, it's heavier to press here, and a lot of things are involved that are not comfortable for your hand. So how do I modify this exercise? I include a C natural here. So I cancel the sharp. In other ways, so I basically do this half step and then whole step. Then I start the same from D. Half step, whole step. Same thing from E again, only I start from white keys. I include the black keys, but I don't start on them, right? So my thumb doesn't end up here. So half step, whole step. And a quick definition of what is half step and whole step on the piano. Half steps are distances from one key to the nearest key, be it black or white, up or down. So from C, your nearest key up is C sharp, and your nearest key down is a B. That's a half step. Or we can call this note C flat. So from E, the nearest note up is F, so that's a half step. And then the whole step. Whole step is 2 half steps. So you skip one key and then go to the next. And then F to F sharp, F to G, G to G sharp, G to A, right? So, and for the left hand, I would do that going down. So I would go, and then I would not put thumb here. I would go to A, so this way you still do the combination, but you don't put thumb. But it's just me. You can go ahead and do the thumb if you feel like it's comfortable. Do it. Just don't forget. So when you go with thumb, another reason why I think it's harder for this particular exercise, because if thumb is high, it's harder for you to go down with your wrist. You will accidentally touch, you might touch this part, right? And you don't want to. So this is why, again, I try to, if it's down here, then. All right, that's it for today's session. You have something to work with, and I hope my explanation was clear. I talked a lot, and I talked way beyond what is written in the book, because I know that some challenges might arise as you are playing these exercises, because that's what I encounter with my students, my beginner students, and I hope that was helpful for you, and maybe it anticipated some of the questions that you would have had. But if it's not all the questions and you have more, feel free to leave it in the comments and I will do my best to answer. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. Bye.